go. Okay, Councillor Vink, you can take over whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Dan. I'll call the West Perth Committee of Adjustment to order at 7:03 to consider an application for a minor variance for lands owned by Doug and Kim Aarons, known as Lot 2, Concession 6, Fullerton Ward, Municipality of West Perth. Could I have a couple people to accept the agenda as presented?
Just
Dan, yeah.
It's 6, not 7.
Yeah, thank you. Could I have a couple people to accept the agenda as presented? Murray and Dean, all those in favor? That's carried. Does anybody have a conflict or pecuniary interest? Could I have a couple people to approve the Committee of Adjustment minutes from August the 22nd, please, to move them? Mike and Dean, all those in favor? That is carried. I just like to remind you that any decision reached by the committee tonight, it can't be used to set precedent in the future. I'd like to call now on the Secretary Treasurer to advise the purpose of tonight's meeting, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to allow for the presentation of an application for a minor variance and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regard to this application. Written comments should be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee or the planner on file. Any member of the public that would like to be notified in writing of the Committee of Adjustments decision on the application are to provide their name and mailing address to me, the clerk, this evening, and also this will entitle you to be advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing in the event the decision on the application is appealed. Notice for tonight's meeting was sent by mail on December 9th, 2022 to property owners within 60 meters of the subject property and to those agencies requiring notice.
Thank you, Dan. I'll now call on Perth County Planner Jerica Gilbert to present the report.
Thank you, Councillor Vink. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
Yep.
And I'm just going to wait for my slides to come up. So I'm really pleased to bring this request forward to the committee tonight. It's for minor variance application 03-22 made by Shane Aarons on behalf of Doug and Kim Aarons, also known as Hamlin Acres Limited, on lands known as 5056 line 26 in the Fullerton Ward. It's just east of the hamlet of Carlingsford, and surrounding land uses are agricultural and residential in nature. Oh, we did have it working. There we go. All right, so I'm going to bring this up. So the proposed change is to have a reduced minimum distance separation formula setback from 183 meters to 154.8 meters from a neighboring residence at 5055 line 26 across the road for a new farrowing facility, which is a swine barn. The minimum distance separation formula is a tool created by the Ontario Ministry of Rural Affairs, Agriculture and Food, and is enabled by the provincial policy statement and our own official plan and zoning bylaw in Perth County. So the reason that the Aarons are submitting this application tonight, they have had previous applications in the past to permit the existing structures, and since the existing barns are coming to the end of their design life, they're thinking of expansion, and especially as they kind of think of passing the farm down through the generations. So the new facility in the picture on the screen is going to come out from a walkway from that white door. And the purpose that they want to do that with is basically that it makes sense for the barn's flow and operations. That's the only walkway that comes down. The rest of the side there is all stalls. And that's why they have decided to move forward. There's a manure pit on the other side that would limit expansion from that end. And the back of the barn is gestation, so there's no stalls in that portion. And for them, this makes the most logical sense to basically expand their facilities. Again, this is approximate roughly where the new barn will be, and that the red box on the left there is the neighboring residence that is going to be impacted by the reduced reduced MDS setback. And then just a picture of the barn and how that walkway kind of connects the two facilities together. So staff are recommending denial of this request tonight on the basis that it doesn't meet the 4 tests of a minor variance. All minor variances, in order to be considered by the committee, are meant to answer for basically questions or intentions. So the first one and the second one, which have to do with the official plan and the zoning bylaw, relate heavily into number 3, which is whether or not the variance is minor. So the official plan and the zoning bylaw allow you to vary a minimum distance separation setback for 2 reasons. One is that it's minor in nature, and minor in this case means that there's not going to be any unacceptable adverse impacts to adjacent land uses. And the second reason is an environmental hazard to avoid something man-made or natural that would, if to meet the MDS setback, would to put you in jeopardy of endangering some other public health concern. Speaking with OMAFRA, there's really not a lot of circumstances where they would recommend amending an MDS setback. They're kind of put in place to reduce land use conflicts for farmers and adjacent landowners. And they're really, the MDS setbacks are meant to protect agriculture at the end of the day. And they caution as soon as you start moving the line, then it kind of opens the door to keep granting more variances. And then that comes back potentially to the municipality where you have landowners change and then you have nuisance concerns. So the planning department has determined that we don't feel that the change is minor in nature. From going from 631 south to 700 constitutes a 10.4% change. We think that perceived impact on the adjacent property might be more than what can be considered. We also don't believe that it is appropriate to encourage development by passing the amendment. The reality is that although it makes sense from an operation standpoint, the barn can be pushed back further. There is no constraints on the property that prevent it from meeting the MDS guidelines. So I have not heard from any member of the public aside from the letter that was submitted with the application by the applicant, and that was by the adjacent landowner. I'm happy to answer further questions by the committee and by any members of the public that might be here tonight. So thank you very much, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Jerica. We appreciate it. I'll maybe start by asking the applicant or their agent if they have any comments. Shane, would you have any comments that we should consider?
I don't think there's a lot. I have put everything basically in that package that I sent to you. All the drawings and everything. I'm not sure what else I can really provide.
Great. Thank you. Then are there any questions or comments from any of the committee members? Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my first question will be, Jerica, could you just review, you mentioned adverse impacts and environmental hazard were the two topics when considering whether a request is a minor or major in nature. Could you just review that again for us, please?
Thank you, Counselor. Yes. So the first part of that is incredibly difficult to do with the MDS setbacks because odor is a very subjective experience. Speaking with OMAFRA, you can have 10 people in a room. 4 or 5 people might have regular noses. Two or something might have like less susceptible noise odor receptors, and then some people might be super sensitive. So it's very difficult to say that increasing the number of swine on the property won't have an impact. It is definitely an improvement over what is existing. So the existing barns are at 141. It's just very hard to quantify without more information, like what exactly is going to be the perceived impact by the adjacent property. And the second part to that is, let me think of an example. Oh, I'll think of an example OMAFRA gave me. Basically, they had it where there was an existing manure storage or an existing barn lot near a settlement area and also near a water course. And although the manure storage that they were contemplating implementing was slightly closer to the settlement area, it basically meant that they would be diverting manure away from the water course. So in that circumstance, it was deemed as acceptable because you were averting an environmental risk. Those circumstances are usually pretty limited in nature. You kind of need some very specific scenarios on the lot. And a lot of the times, based on my conversations with the ministry, it's to address existing development and trying to kind of mitigate what's already there, say prior to when the MDS guidelines came into effect, which was for us in Perth County, the majority of our municipalities adopted MDS into our zoning codes in the late 90s. So anything before then didn't necessarily meet MDS.
Oh, thank you, Jerica. I just, looking at the map, the property in question, the farm in question, it's well outside of a built-up area. And I noticed in the package that the Upper Thames Conservation Authority's given their blessing to the project. So that tells me that they're not considering this to be of any significant environmental impact from their point of view. And I would agree, it is hard to quantify odor, but again, this is in an agricultural area and well away from a built-up area. So, and also the adjacent property owner has not raised an objection. So I'm just having a hard time reconciling the idea to deny the application, being that the farm is well within an agricultural zone.
Are there any other comments or questions? Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of further to what Dean said. I know when I always have been part of this committee, there's the 4 tests, and then the 5th test in my mind is always, is it going to change anyone's life? And in this case, I'm not sure that I'm convinced that it is. But just to clarify, Jerica, the piece that's the 141, that's being removed. That's not being removed.
No, that will, so they are
That-
adding to that, yes.
Adding to, okay. Thank you.
Dean again.
I had a question through you, Mr. Chair. I had a question for the proponent of the submission. Can they explain, like the number of animals is increasing, but can they explain is the number of animals inside the I guess I'm struggling with the question. The number of animals, will they be involved? Will they be further away from the affected residents or closer? I understand the number of animals on the operation is increasing, but the number of animals that are in compliance with the separation distance, how does that work out?
Shane, do you want to explain your plans for the renovation of the existing barn and the new barn, please?
Yep. The renovation or the new barn will be all farrowing. So it'll be, the majority of the pigs will actually be in the new barn and there to the north of that. The existing barn that is closer to the house across the road is the farrowing barn now and will eventually probably be renovated into gilt barn and over the next year or so.
So then the pigs are actually moving further, the concentration of the pigs is moving further away from the affected residents. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from any other committee members? Are there any members of the public that have any comments or questions?
Chair, I can confirm there are no members of the
Okay.
public with any comments or questions.
Thank you. That brings the discussion to a close. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance and input. So we'll move on to the decision portion of the meeting. So Jerica has given her a recommendation from Perth County Planning that the Committee of Adjustment to deny the minor variance. I'll maybe ask if anybody wants to move that one or another motion. If you would like to move that one, or if you would like to move another one, I have another one that I could change the wording to from what I have heard. Dean, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would propose submitting the alternate motion that we have
Okay.
before us to permit the minor variance as submitted.
So Dean, would you move then that the municipality of West Perth Committee of Adjustment approve the minor variance 03/2022 submitted by Shane Aarons on behalf of Ham Land Acres affecting lands described as Lot 2 Concession 6, 5056, Line 26, Fullerton, Municipality of West Perth, and that the committee hereby grants the following variance to the zoning bylaw 100/1998, and that the following conditions apply, that the minor variance only applies to the proposed livestock housing facility consistent with the application, and that the owner obtain the necessary building permit within 2 years of approval of the minor variance.
Yes, that's the motion that I wish
Okay.
to bring forward for acceptance by the committee.
Thanks, Dean. Anybody second that motion? Murray seconds that motion. All those in favor? That is carried.
Chair, could you briefly go through the decision, or sorry, just the reasoning included in that motion? That
Yeah, for sure I can. The section 6.41, is that what you were thinking, Dan?
just the paragraph below that.
Yeah.
subject.
Yeah, the subject application conforms to the general intent and purpose of the County of West Perth official plan and the Municipality of West Perth zoning bylaw. The subject application has also been found to be desirable for the appropriate development or use of the subject property and is minor in nature.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
I believe we can adjourn now, Chair.
Great. I'll take a mover and seconder for the Committee of Adjustment to close at 7:23. Mike and Murray, all those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you all.
6:23, Chair. Thank you.